forward to 2020, determined to be a victim no more.
And I didn't want him to have any more power over me. I don't want him to ever think that he does.
Her story begins when Lottie is 29 years old. The single mother is living outside Atlanta, Georgia.
I couldn't have asked for a better daughter or life. Life was just amazing. We had fun. Every day we had fun.
She works in a medical office, and on weekends she enjoys paintball, where she meets a 17-year-old player named Waseem Daker. Of Syrian descent, Daker is highly intelligent, starting college at just 16, but socially awkward. They strike up a conversation about paintball that soon turns personal.
He had a lot of problems at school, in relationships that he's had at home, and he began sharing those difficulties and problems with me.
How did you take that?
At that time, I just thought it was normal. I thought everybody has problems, everybody has issues.
Lottie says she tries to take on a big sister role, but Waseem Daker wants more. What was the nature of this relationship? Was it romantic?
Never. We were friendly because we were on the same team. That's it. Nothing else.
So the idea that it was romantic only existed in one person's head?
Until he started spreading those seeds in other people's heads on the team. And when I found that out, I confronted him. He denied it. And I called his mom, and I spoke to his brother about it and other people about it. And they said, we don't believe it anyways. He's, he's sick. He just wants to be in a relationship with you, and he can't have you, and he's delusional.
Those words would prove terrifyingly true. The more Lottie pushes him away, the more desperate Daker becomes, saying anything to get her attention.
Hello? I mean, we're not talking even 10 phone calls a day. We're talking, 50, 100 phone calls in a day, just the phone constantly ringing. And if I wouldn't pick up, then he would bang on the door just all hours, every day.
When did it occur to you, this isn't just weird, this just isn't intense, I have a stalker?
It kind of clicked one day. My daughter and I were eating at a Wendy's, and he just walks up and he goes, wow. He goes, we have so much in common. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Because before that, he would show up at the store, Blockbuster, just everywhere.
And it hits you?
Hits me hard.
What she doesn't know is that he's not just some confused kid. Waseem Daker has stalked other women since he was 14, and now he has Lottie in his sights. Daker starts to follow her, lurks outside her office. Then an ominous turn. Daker calls Lottie at work and says he is in her house, in her daughter's bedroom. Lottie calls the cops. They search the house and find no one. But when she gets home,
he was hiding in my daughter's closet. He came out with a gun, had it to me first, and then had it to him. And I talked him into putting it down. And I called his mom, and his mom and brother came and got him and got the gun.
Did you call the police and say this is what happened, this guy had a gun?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I wanted him to get help. I wanted him to stop, and his family constantly would reassure me that he would stop.
Lottie records several phone calls urging Daker to get help.
You need help. You need to be committed, okay? Because I need it to stop. I have been trying to help you. I don't want you to commit suicide.
Then what, I need to ask you, do you want to help me?
Yes.
Do you want to keep me in a jail?
But Daker is clearly obsessed.
About the middle of February, it was really bad. Banging on my door all night, calling. It was really bad. And he threatened to my life and my daughter's life. He said that he could get away with a perfect murder. He went crazy.
His relentless pursuit pushes Lottie to the breaking point.
I was crumbling. I mean, my entire personality was changing. I was really depressed and didn't want to leave the house. I was tired. I could hardly even work at work because I would go days without sleeping.
Because you were afraid of who was outside.
He was outside. He was outside. He was there yelling, banging on the door.
Finally, she calls the police. So you have him arrested. You have a restraining order. But then you decide not to pursue the charges. Because
His mom called me and assured me that she would get him help now. I was not out to get him into trouble. I wanted just to be able to drive without him being there. I wanted to be able to walk in my door without my door banging a minute after I arrived or my phone ringing as soon as I arrived. I just wanted my life back.
But it was not to be. Daker shows up at her office in violation of that order of protection. He is arrested, and the court orders him to seek treatment at this mental facility. Lottie takes no chances and moves with her young daughter across town into this house to evade her stalker. Her downstairs neighbor is a flight attendant named Carmen Smith. She and her 5-year-old son Nicholas become much-needed friends.
Our children played, whenever Nick and Christina were there, they played daily. I know that Christina just loved Nick, and I knew that Nick just really loved Christina. He'd always, every day, can I play with Christina? And it was nice.
With Daker institutionalized, Lottie was just starting to feel safe. But that feeling wouldn't last long.
I knew when he was released because he had gotten into my car and put the emergency brake up and slid my seat back. And I knew, oh my God, he's out.
Detective John Dawes worked the case.
Her car was broken into at her workplace in Fulton County, and that's where we believe he learned her address that she had written in an address book.
Daker now knows where Lottie is, and in October, he takes it to a darker level. Unable to reach Lottie on the phone, he calls her friend, Carmen Smith.
Her phone rang. She came running up the stairs, and I ran over and opened up the door, and she says, "Your stalker's calling me."
Was Carmen worried?
Oh my gosh, she was terrified. She was very, very scared.
The stalking had been going on for almost a year, but Lottie could have never imagined what Waseem Daker would do next. Lottie Spencer's stalker has taken over her life, and now he is about to take something else from her.
I get a call from my daughter. She is so hysterical. And she was screaming that something happened to Nicholas.
Nicholas Smith, then a 5-year-old living with his mom Carmen, downstairs from Lottie and her 10-year-old daughter. The little boy is about to become a victim.
I had come home from school, and my mom's car was in the driveway, and I just assumed that she was there, so I went downstairs.
Waiting there is Lottie's stalker, Waseem Daker, with a knife in his hand.
Mr. Daker grabbed me and started stabbing me.
What do you feel when you remember what he did to you?
Confusion, kind of. I don't really understand how someone would do that.
How did he leave? How did it stop?
He was stabbing me, and I started yelling for Christina's name because she was down the hall. And he covered my mouth so that I couldn't yell to her. And after he stabbed me a bunch, I couldn't make out who exactly it was. And then I got up. I didn't really know what was happening, and then I fainted.
Lottie rushes home to find the unimaginable.
I just saw blood, and then I heard sirens and ran to my daughter, and there was Nick, and he was covered in blood.
Seeing Nick stabbed 18 times, Lottie flies into a panic.
Where's Carmen? Where's Carmen? You need to go check on Carmen. And I knew, oh my God, just the look that they had. He said that she was dead, and I didn't even want to believe him. I said, I need to see. She's not dead. I just need to see. And they said, you can't see, but she is dead.
Inside, police find signs of torture and murder. Carmen Smith is in her bed, gagged, stabbed, choked to death. Detective John Dawes describes a death scene reminiscent of Hannibal Lecter.
She had marks on her body which indicated she had at one time been handcuffed. She had ligature marks on her throat. She had some bruising. She had 2 punctures in her back. Her clothing was in such a state that it was apparent she had been undressed and then redressed.
Did you have any question about who would have done this?
No. I didn't want it to be him. There's a lot of guilt that comes with that. Because you always think, if I would have said this or done that, or you can play the what if game forever. Maybe Nick wouldn't have been stabbed 18 times. I didn't want it to be him, but it was, I knew.
The local news shows up to cover the crime that seems so random and cruel.
Early into the murder investigation of 30-year-old Carmen Smith.
Catching Carmen's sister, who immediately thinks of Daker.
Possibly a restraining order on him or something. This cannot be true. This cannot have happened.
Within hours, police pick up Waseem Daker. He denies being in the home. With no good eyewitnesses or physical evidence linking Daker to the crime, police can't charge him with murder. Instead, they prosecute him for an earlier charge of stalking Lottie. Daker is tried and convicted, but not much consolation for Lottie Spencer. He gets the 10 years.
It's not enough. It's not enough. I knew that he killed Carmen in 10 years. It's not enough for anybody for what he did to her.
Lottie's life is frozen in that moment of guilt and fear. She flees to South Carolina but can't escape the traumatic memories.
All those years it haunts you because he told you that he could get away with a perfect murder.
How did you deal with that?
Throughout the years, October is a pretty bad month because of what happened to Carmen and Nick. Then November comes around and then you think, oh, it's Thanksgiving and Carmen's not there to share it with Nick. There's not a month that can go by without you thinking about how her family and her son has had to endure.
Simple tasks like showering or vacuuming now frighten her. Scared the sound will mask someone sneaking up behind her.
I was pretty broken and started doing drugs to shield the pain. I didn't want to think about anything. It's just too painful and too hard.
Did you stay in touch with Nick?
No.
It was too hard.
Unbearable. Very, very difficult. I felt guilty.
After 7 weeks in the hospital, Smith's 5-year-old son, Nick, begins a long road to recovery, now being raised by his father and aunt. You grew up all those years with no closure, right?
Correct. I was scared because I didn't exactly know if I was safe.
Meanwhile, that 10-year sentence Daker is serving begins to quickly tick down, and in 2006, he's released from prison. What does that mean to you at that time?
I was scared. Is he angry that he's been in jail? Is he gonna come after me? Is he gonna try to finish what he started? I didn't really know what to think.
Do you think he's going to come after you when he gets out in 2006?
Yes. I think he's going to come after me and my daughter because he had made threats that he would come after us, my grandchildren, future children. So yes, of course.
Did he reach out to you at all?
No.
Did you feel his presence?
Yes.
But while Lottie and Nick are dreading Daker's release, authorities are moving on the case. The passage of time has given them new tools, namely nuclear DNA testing.
We certainly strongly suspected that this was our murder. And as we got closer to him being released from the prison system, I think there was a new sense of urgency.
It turns out a number of hairs had been preserved, found under the shirt of Carmen Smith's lifeless body. They are sent to the lab. The results will change everything.
This is beyond a reasonable doubt. This is absolute proof positive that Waseem Daker was in contact with Carmen Smith.
15 years after the death of Carmen Smith, Waseem Daker's story that he had never been in the house is disproved. He will finally stand trial for murder. You get a call. What did they tell you?
They got Daker. They got him. You're glad that he didn't get away with the murder. But then again, I have to deal with a lot of stuff. I have to deal with all the things that happened back then, because now I have to testify.
Next, courtroom cruelty.
For her to come in and say, I put a gun to her head and threatened her with a knife, I don't think any of y'all believe that.
Daker gets one more crack at his victims as he plays lawyer and cat and mouse.
What were you telling yourself when he started asking you questions, making light of what he had done, pretending it hadn't happened?
Waseem Daker is finally on trial for a brutal attack on a 5-year-old boy and the murder of the boy's mother. Prosecutor Jesse Evans says he is the worst kind of stalker, the kind that becomes a killer.
What picture do you develop of Waseem Daker?
As a psychopath. I mean, you could go your entire career as a prosecutor and not come across somebody with the issues that he has.
Then, on the eve of trial, Daker has a surprise. He sheds his prison jumper for a suit, gets a haircut, and chooses to represent himself. The decision seems part madman, part genius.
I think that he considers himself to be exceptionally intelligent. I think that he had a lot of time to peruse the case and decide that he could represent himself better than anyone else. And I think it also was driven by his opportunity to confront Lottie Spencer.
My question is...
During the 3-week trial, Daker is soft-spoken and awkwardly plays the part of counselor. He seems out of his depth, and prosecutors say out of his mind, as he argues he wasn't Lottie Spencer's stalker. He was her lover.
Judge, she's alleging she's never had a relationship with me, and part of my...
Because I'm not allegedly. I never had a relationship with you.
Judge, can I speak without being interrupted by the witness, please?
But Daker is also facing a couple of tough pieces of proof. First, proof he obtained disturbing materials before the murder. Books like Techniques of Silent Killing and Kill Without Joy.
And many of those books are hauntingly true to what we saw in the scene, including using an ice pick. That's what happened to Carmen Smith. The assault on Nick Smith, he was grabbed by an arm from behind. That was displayed in the books.
Even more damning is a crumpled up letter Daker wrote to himself while locked up briefly before the murder. In it, he scribbles a threat to Lottie. She will pay for what she has done. That's what keeps me alive in jail, plotting to destroy her, though I will let her live. Prosecutors say it might be a hint at Daker's motive in killing Carmen Smith, an act of revenge against Lottie. Now the stalker has control of his victim once more in court.
This incident where you allege the defendant put a gun to your head, when did that happen?
It happened more than once.
How many times?
With the gun or the knife?
Oh, there's a knife now. Tell us about the knife that you didn't tell us about yesterday. Tell us about it.
Daker seems to enjoy badgering Lottie, who has her identity hidden from cameras, contemptuously asking her questions that he already knows the answers to.
Ms. Smith was killed on October the 23rd, 1995, was she not?
What does it mean to you when you learn that Daker has decided to represent himself?
You know that he's enjoying every little word that comes out of his mouth. That he gets to stand there across from you after all the things that he did. It's torture. It's torture.
The judge has set some rules for Daker. He cannot cross this line of tape on the floor, approach anyone, or handle evidence, including knives and an ice pick. But he still has plenty of opportunity to get inside Lottie's head.
What other threats did the defendant make to you?
That you'd kill yourself
in
front of me if I wouldn't talk to you. That you wanted to slit my daughter's throat in front of me.
Keep going. What else? What other threats? Did the defendant ever threaten to kill you?
Yes, you did.
Did he ever threaten to kill your daughter?
Yes, you did.
What benefits do you think you wound up gaining from the fact that Daker decided to represent himself?
The big benefit for us is he came off so creepy.
Did he ever threaten to kill your grandchildren?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
It is surreal. Daker acting the cool counselor, referring to himself in the third person, as Lottie identifies him as a monster. a prosecutor's dream come true. Daker actually wants Lottie to recall each and every threat and seems to enjoy hearing Lottie analyze his disturbed personality.
Any other threats he's made? Please share them.
If you don't talk to me, if you don't forgive me, if you don't be my friend, I'm so sorry. I'm going to kill myself. He was very manipulative, and yes, I should have never dropped any charges on you. Never, and I regret that each and every day.
Are you done?
He was calm as a cucumber. He has no emotions, no feelings, zero. Zero.
Was there any indication that the defendant had been in your home?
Yes. Carmen's dead.
What else other than...
Nick is stabbed. You were there.
Judge, this is totally unresponsive to the question.
You seem to change over the course of going back and forth with Daker. You seem to kind of find a resolve in yourself.
I could tell that he was really enjoying it. And I didn't want him to have any more power over me. You said that if I even told her or even pressed charges, that you were going to ruin me, that you were going to let everybody see my journals.
So after the defendant put a gun to your head, you chose not to mention this fact to the police because you were scared the defendant would expose your journals.
My whole objective throughout the whole course of your harassment and your stalking was for it to stop. And I just kept on thinking, the poor Nick has got to confront the man that stabbed him 18 times and murdered his mom. And if he's going to do it, I got to be strong for him to show him that we can do it. We can do it.
In no small irony, the day Nick testifies is the day his mother would have celebrated her 47th birthday. He is now a grown man, 22 years old.
The person in the room grabbed me and started...
But on the stand, he relives being a little boy, stabbed by the man in the black mask.
And they covered my mouth and then kept stabbing me, and then...
Unmoved, Daker immediately tries to poke holes in Nick's story.
Do you remember telling Detective Randy Harris and Detective Mary Finlayson that you could see the attacker's eyes?
No.
You don't recall? Do you remember telling them back in 1995 that the killer's eyes were blue?
No. I was in the hospital and had gotten stabbed repeatedly by you, so I don't really think that that was a very good time to be asking a 5-year-old questions like that.
Did you feel victimized again by him?
Not exactly. I knew that's how he wanted to make me feel, so since I knew that, I did my best to not let myself become a victim again.
What were you telling yourself when he started asking you questions, making light of what he had done, pretending it hadn't happened?
Well, he was pissing me off, the way that he was asking me questions.
Do you recall that statement?
He was trying to confuse me and make me remember things that I didn't remember.
For Nick, he literally wound up facing down the boogeyman. I mean, this is the monster from his childhood nightmares, who he knew was real. He didn't know where he was.
We tell our kids there's no such thing as monsters, hoping to comfort them so that they'll feel safe in their home. And then you have a person like Waseem Daker who's proof positive that that's not entirely true.
Then there's what prosecutors call the smoking gun, hairs found on the dead body of Carmen Smith. Daker said he had never been in the house, yet the DNA tells a different story.
We have a hair linked positively to him with DNA science, not just on the deceased victim's body, it's under Carmen Smith's shirt. It was the nail in his coffin.
But Waseem Daker will give a closing argument that exposes weaknesses in the prosecution's case and could set him free.
I didn't even know Carmen Smith was killed. I have never in my life put my hands on her or any other woman.
All right. It took 17 years to bring Waseem Daker to trial for murder, but only 4 hours for the jury to return a verdict just this past Friday.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Waseem Daker, guilty as to count 1, malice murder.
Guilty on all 11 counts. Guilty of killing Carmen Smith, stabbing her son Nick, and the tormented stalking of Lottie Spencer.
Tell me about getting the word about the verdict.
It was amazing. It was amazing because it was as if all this heaviness on my heart just was released.
Outside the courthouse, Jim Horan, Nick's uncle, thanks the jury for seeing the truth.
She was taken from us way too soon by a savage monster. Today's not a great day for our family. It is just another day without our sister, our mom, our daughter, Carmen.
So what would be the punishment for Waseem Daker? At Monday's sentencing, Nick reminds the court of the damage done. His mother taken, his body scarred by being stabbed so many times.
When Waseem Daker took my mother's life and stabbed me, my life was put on hold. And in my eyes, it's always been in his hands. Nothing will ever bring back my mother, and I will always be branded with his rage on my chest, but maybe now I can start anew. I love you, Mom.
What did you want him to know?
That he didn't break me, and that he might have tried to ruin my life, but he didn't do it.
What do you want him to know about your mom?
That she's still around, kind of, and that he can't steal memories from me or my family members or her friends, and that he's not as powerful and smart as he thinks he is.
Still in character, though no longer in a suit, Waseem Daker insists he was wrongly convicted.
I did not kill Carmen Smith. I did not stab Nick Smith. I hope that one day the truth comes out, because this is not it.
But Judge Mary Staley has none of it.
Given the chance, you would do untold evil. Because I see that as what you are. You'll receive a sentence of life in prison plus 47 and a half years. And I hope you never leave prison, because that would be just. All right, take him back.
Lottie feels relief, but also immense guilt. She hopes others will do what she did not.
If anybody is in a similar situation of being stalked and you feel uncomfortable in any way, your no should be no. Call the authorities immediately. Don't let it linger, because it's not going to stop. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, there's nothing you can do to stop somebody that is so adamant about stalking you. There's nothing. Only the police can intervene and stop it.
It was at once the end of a trial and the closing of a chapter, allowing two lives that have been frozen in time to move on. For Nick Smith, this is the first time since he was 5 years old that he says he can live without fear.
Now I kind of feel like there's no limit to what I can do. I don't feel like anyone is controlling my life.
Lottie says after Daker was sentenced, she was able to do something she hasn't done for years.
What is different on this night?
All these years, I've always woken up early. Me sleeping in is just laying in bed until 6 o'clock in the morning. That Saturday, I woke up at 10:30. I took a shower, which is one thing that has been difficult to do, but not anymore. He's gone.
This is a good step towards the healing process for the both of them. I was dealing with two soft-spoken, kind of timid individuals when I first started talking to them in 2010. And by the time they came through the trial process, you're dealing with completely different people. They found their voices again. They found their strength.
The trial brought Lottie and Nick back together after years of trying to forget. Now, they will move forward together.
What do you take from all of this?
That despite horrific incidences in one's life, you can still go on with life and be happy. I'm stronger today than I ever have in all my life. Even through the tears, I'm a strong woman.
It's that old coarse expression, don't let the bastards keep you down.
Yeah, and he can't.
And we wish good luck to Lottie and Nick. Let me ask you, would you ever consider representing yourself at trial, especially if the stakes were as high as they were for Waseem Daker? Go online to abcnews.com/2020 and vote in our poll. We'll be right back.
Next. Is it the socially accepted kind of stalking? Looking up your exes on Facebook.
I saw a self-portrait and it showed him wearing a wedding ring.
Ouch. He's only a click away, whether he knows it or not.
Okay, time for some true confessions. Have you ever looked up an ex on Facebook? Be honest. You might just call it checking in. Others might call it surveillance. Whatever you call it, a third of us do it. Now, of course, there are always people who want to get a little too up close and personal to celebrities, but what about what is being called social stalking? Looking up someone who may have dumped you. Have you done it? You may have and not even know it. Take our test and see if you are a little bit stalker. Here's Jay Shadler.
In our celebrity-drenched culture, it's a sad but not altogether surprising fact that sometimes fascination warps into obsession. This man kept a video diary as he constructed a bomb to send to pop singer Bjork.
Look at this beautiful face. I'm just gonna have to kill her.
First, let's get right to that frightening alleged stalking incident involving Miley Cyrus.
Just this past month, police responded to a 911 call of a prowler at the Hollywood home of Miley Cyrus.
Keep your hands up, walk towards us.
Now, Cyrus has been the target of stalkers before, but this time, the fella actually insists he's married to the star.
I am. No way.
He has since pled not guilty to trespassing. Back in January, a fan-turned-stalker breaks into Mila Kunis's Los Angeles house. She isn't there, but the police say the stalker, named Stuart Dunn, proceeds to call her place home for the next 2 weeks.
The police are telling us they're calling him a stalker. But it's a dangerous stalker because anybody who breaks into your house, is not just standing there trying to get an autograph.
A few months later, the same guy shows up 3 days in a row at Kunis's Beverly Hills gym. Kunis is terrified, Dunn is jailed, and later pleads not guilty to stalking charges. The paradox of all this, of course, is that celebrities want attention, just not the freaky kind. But now the new social media universe only complicates matters.
I even love rehearsal.
Suddenly, the mundane musings of your favorite star explode on your Twitter account.
Going out tonight, it's going down.
Pictures of how Taylor Swift spends her free time are on Instagram. Katy Perry details her night out on Twitter. And the Kardashians, well, some would say that they're practically stalking us. Someone, somewhere, is always watching. Today, news broke that tennis champion Roger Federer has become the target of an online stalker.
Social media has thrown privacy into a tailspin.
Psychologist Seth Meyers.
There is so much information that people are able to get their hands on that it can really take the fascination to a level that becomes destructive.
Occasionally, social media becomes the method for a true stalker's madness, and the targets are not just celebrities. Imagine you're home alone on Facebook when suddenly a death threat message appears. This isn't a movie plot, and 17-year-old Kaylee Boggs is not a celebrity.
He said I had 2 weeks left to live before he brought me from point A to point B.
For months this summer, Kaylee received these horrifying and relentless threats from an anonymous online stalker.
It was just very nerve-wracking all the time. Like, I never went anywhere by myself.
Last month, police arrested 20-year-old Craig Wyatt Jr. Through Facebook, emails, and cell phones. Police say he had been haunting Kaylee and more than 24 other women.
Craig Wyatt may have thought it was a joke, but it definitely wasn't a joke to these victims. They took it very serious. So did we.
While Wyatt's case is obviously extreme, most of us understand the addictive quality of surfing social media. And it turns out the internet's voyeuristic appeal can bring out a little bit of the stalker in all of us. In fact, Facebook stalking is a growing trend. Many of us have done it. Flipping through photo albums and posts, never leaving a trace, and all the while finding out the intimate details of our exes' lives. Sound familiar? It does to Tracy Clark Flory, a writer for Salon.
Well, so I found myself newly single and feeling a bit sorry for myself.
So she pops onto Flickr to check up on her ex-boyfriend.
I saw a self-portrait that he'd taken, and it showed him wearing a wedding ring.
Ouch.
Yes, exactly.
But unable to stop looking, Tracy ultimately finds herself peeking in on his wedding pictures.
It was very surreal. It's one thing to hear about an ex getting married. It's a totally different thing to be a virtual bystander to the actual ceremony.
That fits neatly with the findings of a recent study suggesting this kind of online stalking obstructs the process of healing and moving on from a past relationship. Or as Tracy puts it,
it makes it impossible to actually truly disconnect, sometimes from people that you would rather be disconnected from.
In the end, the internet remains a remarkable and sometimes risky tangle of connections. Best advice? If you go spinning across the web, beware of spiders.
So tonight we've seen people go to extremes, sometimes dangerous, even fatal extremes. But here's a sneak peek at a very different kind of going to extremes. It's next week's 2020. Just how far some people will go. These guys will tell you, not nearly far enough.
There's outside the box, and then there's this, and this, and this. How some people are going to extremes to get the most out of their looks.
The stranger the surgery, the better.
Want to look like all those celebs with the hourglass figures? Then try something so old it's new again and making a breathtaking comeback. Literally.
Take a deep breath.
Corsets. It's the latest diet craze, but only if you're not too straight-laced.
Which means you're going to take me in 6 inches.
Probably
less?
not today.
Sucking it up for beauty. He's cutting it up for beauty and implanting too to become a human Ken doll.
Let me throw out a crazy question. Why not just work out?
That is so not exciting, not glamorous or fabulous.
Ken, meet Barbie times 10. She went from this to this to have the 7th largest breasts in the world.
How much do your breasts weigh? 21 pounds each together.
But it's not for vanity. It's a job.
What do the world's biggest boob models make? About $250,000 a year.
What do women want?
The coconut is probably a pretty darn good size for most people.
And some people will do anything to get the inside story. Remember Samantha on Sex and the City? Meet the newest naked sushi model.
Is there anything that's too risque for you?
Next Friday on 2020, we're going to extremes.
And that is our program for tonight. But stay tuned for Nightline after your local news. I am Chris Cuomo, and for all of us at ABC News and 2020, have a great weekend. Forward to 2020, determined to be a victim no more.
And I didn't want him to have any more power over me. I don't want him to ever think that he does.
Her story begins when Lottie is 29 years old. The single mother is living outside Atlanta, Georgia.
I couldn't have asked for a better daughter or life. Life was just amazing. We had fun. Every day we had fun.
She works in a medical office, and on weekends she enjoys paintball, where she meets a 17-year-old player named Waseem Daker. Of Syrian descent, Daker is highly intelligent, starting college at just 16, but socially awkward. They strike up a conversation about paintball that soon turns personal.
He had a lot of problems at school, in relationships that he's had at home, and he began sharing. It was really bad. Banging on my door all night, calling. It was really bad. And he threatened to my life and my daughter's life. He said that he could get away with a perfect murder. He went crazy.
His relentless pursuit pushes Lottie to the breaking point.
I was crumbling. I mean, my entire personality was changing. I was really depressed and didn't want to leave the house. I was tired. I could hardly even work at work because I would go days without sleeping.
Because you were afraid of who was outside.
He was outside. He was outside. He was there yelling, banging on the door.
Finally, she calls the police.
So you have him arrested.
Mm-hmm.
You have a restraining order.
Mm-hmm.
But then you decide not to pursue the charges.
Mm-hmm.
Because
his mom called me and sharing those difficulties and problems with me.
How did you take that?
At that time, I just thought it was normal. I thought everybody has problems, everybody has issues.
Lottie says she tries to take on a big sister role, but Waseem Daker wants more.
What was the nature of this relationship? Was it romantic?
Never. We were friendly because we were on the same team. That's it. Nothing else.
So the idea that it was romantic only existed in one person's head?
Until he started spreading those seeds in other people's heads on the team. And when I found that out, I confronted him. He denied it. And I called his mom and I spoke to his brother about it and other people about it. And they said, we don't believe it anyways. He's, he's sick. He just wants to be in a relationship with you and he can't have you and he's delusional.
Those words would prove terrifyingly true. The more Lottie pushes him away, the more desperate Daker becomes, saying anything to get her attention. Her daughter's bedroom. Lottie calls the cops. They search the house and find no one. But when she gets home...
He was hiding in my daughter's closet. He came out with a gun, had it to me first, and then had it to him. And I talked him into putting it down. And I called his mom, and his mom and brother came and got him and got the gun.
Did you call the police and say, this is what happened, this guy had a gun?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I wanted him to get help. I wanted him to stop, and his family constantly would reassure me that he would stop.
Lottie records several phone calls urging Daker to get help.
You need help. You need to be committed, okay? Because I need it to stop. I have been trying to help you. I don't want you to commit suicide.
Then what? I need to ask you, do you want to help me?
Yes.
Do you want to keep me in a jail?
But Daker is clearly obsessed.
About the middle of February.
Hello?
And we're not talking even 10 phone calls a day. We're talking, 50, 100 phone calls in a day. Just the phone constantly ringing. And if I wouldn't pick up, then he would bang on the door just all hours, every day.
When did it occur to you? This isn't just weird. This just isn't intense. I have a stalker.
It kind of clicked one day. My daughter and I were eating at a Wendy's. And he just walks up and he goes, wow. He goes, we have so much in common. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Because before that, he would show up at the store, Blockbuster, just everywhere.
And it hits you.
Hits me hard.
What she doesn't know is that he's not just some confused kid. Waseem Daker has stalked other women since he was 14. And now he has Lottie in his sights. Daker starts to follow her, lurks outside her office. Then an ominous turn. Daker calls Lottie at work and says he is in her house